Hello, all, and welcome to the newest episode of the Noobs and Knockouts Podcast. I'm Austin. I'm a knockout. Watched a lot of wrestling.
I'm David. I'm a noob. Haven't watched a lot of wrestling. And I am going to go into this. Totally gonna watch a wrestling thing tonight. Haven't already watched the thing.
I don't see a reason to keep up the charade on that one.
Yeah, I don't. I don't think we need to lie to our audience here.
Yeah,
we had a goof.
Yes, we had many goofs when we recorded that episode. But the biggest goof is that apparently we did not have the Twitch didn't record it right. It didn't save our VOD. So our episode in its original context is completely lost to time. And so our best solution is that we're going to re-record this and try to keep the same general format of what we do for our regular episodes, but coming at it from the perspective of David and I have already watched everything here. So what are we doing tonight? We're talking about NXT. What is NXT? It is WWE's kind of third brand at this point, and it has had a very long history of ups and downs. First, with NXT, you had it was originally a game show idea where they just took a bunch of rookies they already had in their developmental system or recently signed guys, such as I don't believe like Daniel Bryan was part of that original group, and I don't believe that he was in the developmental system. They just kind of signed him on for this. And it was a game show. It was like a reality TV show where they like wrestled each other, sure. And they won, and they had standings, but also they did silly competitions like selling paper, like selling programs or obstacle courses around the ring or promo contests, but it's about random words as opposed to being like trash talk this guy.
You know, things that are very important to the art of wrestling.
Yeah, it's very fun in some ways, but also very dumb. And it got progressively worse as time went on to the point that eventually WWE stopped caring. They especially stopped caring because it was originally they originally put it in the sci-fi. They had a time slot on the sci-fi channel back when it was spelled sci-fi, I believe.
Oh my god,
that's how old.
Shit.
That's how old we're talking here. But they had the time slot, and then it didn't get good ratings because nobody really cared. So it kind of became an internet-only show. And when it became an internet-only show, it took on this weird life of its own, where it was still officially a game show, but at some point they just kind of stopped talking about the standings or people getting eliminated, and it kind of just became a show for the lowest tier guys to kind of get an opportunity to have meaningful matches and minor storylines. It has its own charm to it. I watched a few episodes of it back when it aired in that format as a Hulu.com exclusive, but it didn't have any real like. It didn't mean anything. You could skip it, and it changes nothing about the real stuff on Raw and SmackDown. But in 2012, they as part of a big restructuring of the brand. In Triple H, we know him as a wrestler and a executive, except now it's becoming a little less kayfabe. Now it's a little more actually he's kind of has power here.
Oh shit!
And so he was put in charge of NXT as kind of a rebrand of their developmental show, Florida Championship Wrestling. Which was already airing on TV technically, and that if you were local to Florida, you might be able to get it on cable access or something. I don't really know where it aired, but I know local Florida, basically. And they were basically like, what if we just put it here? NXT has kind of a fancy, get it? It's like next, but without the E in it. So, think that could work as a developmental show, and it gets the developmental wrestlers a chance to get TV reps and kind of have a simulated version of being on Raw and SmackDown without actually being on.
Yeah.
A real learning environment.
It's a from kind of what we talked about the first time we did this was like almost this weird sort of roundabout way of doing training where you get like that on-air experience in this kind of like unique way that the newbies before you have yet to or had not experienced.
Yeah, because everything before this, it was like it technically aired, but it airs only on local channels, and you're mostly like just fucking around in a bar in like a warehouse in front of 20 people. Like that's what your developmental wrestling looks like. And in NXT, they planted their flag at Full Sail University, which is a relatively well regarded for like university in Florida that focuses on like production and like artistic kind of stuff. And so they set sail. Haha. They use that kind of terminology a lot. I couldn't help. It just kind of came out, didn't it?
Yeah.
But yeah, they like set up shop at Full Sail on the campus, and it became they have a regular crowd of a couple hundred people.
Yeah, I will say something I kind of thought about before, but didn't really articulate until just now. I'm surprised a little bit that it took them this long to kind of get to it, because this was like early mid 2010s that NXT kind of came out to be what it is today, right?
Yeah, 2010 was when it was first a game show, and 2012 was when they transitioned to being the developmental show that we know it as today.
Yeah, no, that almost surprised me a little bit, simply because like the more I, do this show with you, the more I kind of come to understand the business model for WWE and its periphery, kind of throughout the history of modern professional wrestling. And I know that back in the day, they were a lot more cautious about things. Obviously, back before kayfabe got, fully exposed, they weren't going to pull back the curtain on the training process. But once they, did that, I'm surprised nobody kind of had the idea to make it more of a thing to put the trainees on air. Like, if maybe they just thought it was too risky to put unproven talent on air, but like that also doesn't seem to be like the MO of how they run this show, because a lot of the people they get for it are like indie folk that they're just kind of training to bring into AAA. It's not like all total newbies. So it surprised me that it took them this long to be like, hey, what if we made this its own show? Because it does fit really well into that sort of formula.
Mm-hmm. Well, I will go ahead and say that two things about that is first is I would probably lean on the idea of them just feeling like it wasn't worth the effort for like unproven talent. Like they didn't think they would have a real audience for for watching a bunch. They didn't think they'd have an audience for watching a bunch of trainees learn in real time how to be wrestlers.
Fair enough.
So they just never tried it. And I will say about the indie wrestler thing, it's as I mentioned the first time around we did this, is that NXT kind of got a bit of a cult following among the more hardcore wrestling fans, and NXT became a way for not just being a developmental brand show, it also became a way for WWE to kind of create an alternative to itself within its own company, where it kind of appeals more to the hardcore wrestling fan who is maybe a little jaded by Raw or SmackDown. And they started signing more and more like top tier indie wrestlers to, yes, transition to being on Raw and SmackDown, but also as like a hook for to get the hardcore fans to watch NXT. And that especially became more apparent after it became a selling point of the WWE network.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. And it is kind of funny that they continued to monopolize themselves in this very distinct way, in which they were like, hey, let's diversify the market with our own product.
That's become like another purpose of NXT, is to kind of like, again, create your like own competition, where like, if you want your indie wrestling, well, you can just watch NXT. It's all under the umbrella.
The really diabolical thing about it, though, is that it works, and it seems like
Yes.
it works pretty effectively without all that much of a chance of failing. Like they had a risk, I'm sure, when they first did this. They ran a risk of kind of doing a how do you do, fellow indie watchers sort of thing, but at the same time, when you bring on that level of talent and you're so focused on creating its own like branding, its own world, yeah, of course you're kind of gonna get away with it, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're so the one thing that WWE is very consistently good at is learning. They're not always great at getting things off the bat, but they're very good at learning in spurts the sort of things that the fans roll with aesthetically.
Mm-hmm.
And they took their years of realizing, oh shit, our fans are getting really tired of us, and were able to then roll that into the NXT formula. It's so diabolical, and I kind of hate that they got away with it, but it's also great.
They can't keep getting away with it.
Yeah, seriously.
I will say that almost that in some ways the NXT's momentum has stalled a little bit since AEW came about, because if you were here for NXT as an alternative to WWE, now you literally have one that also isn't under the WWE auspices, and also just like a talent thing, in that like now AEW's here to kind of leak some of that indie talent that would have funneled itself into NXT.
Yeah, I mean, AEW continues to have that indie feel, even though they're like booking a whole bunch of like ex AAA talent at this point. Like,
yeah, even though they're also bankrolled by a billionaire, they have an ability to lean into that indie aesthetic too.
Yeah, that's the thing. Their entire brand was built around that aesthetic, whereas WWE kind of had to like fake it a little bit.
Yeah, it's indie, but it's still like it's still WWE.
It's a little
standard.
too polished.
You're right.
To feel fully indie. Like that was when we watched during our original recording session. I did get this weird dissonance of like, on one hand this feels indie, but on the other it just feels like scale model WWE.
Yeah, it did, and I'm not saying that's bad, but it's
no.
You can see it like for some people that was a really good thing. Like that's kind of a barrier to entry to some fans, at least from what I've seen online, of being like, I kind of want to get into the indies, but then they all look low rent.
Yeah,
because and so they found what they wanted in NXT. It's got that indie feel to it, but then it also doesn't look like shit.
Yeah, I mean, not to denigrate what NXT is aesthetically. That's just to say I can understand why AEW was then able to kind of sap away from that.
But I will say NXT is still immensely successful, of course, but like AEW was absolutely an obstacle to them when they showed up.
Yeah, no. But either way, the business model of NXT seems to be one that was rather brilliantly conceived because of that goal of getting kind of the jaded indie lovers, and the fact that it's a side product and it's not totally like you said, you can have WWE without needing to keep up with NXT. That seems like it would allow a little more, and maybe I'm wrong here, maybe I'm just kind of talking out my ass, but it feels to me like that would allow for a little bit more experimental programming in terms of what was shown on the show.
I mean, I do think that NXT was definitely willing to let guys kind of like have some shit gimmicks. I'll say that, but I don't know if it's truly experimental. But they're definitely willing to shoot some ideas out there, I think, from what I've seen in NXT. But
I
also,
will say though, to be fair, WWE's also fine with people having some really shit gimmicks. So,
hey, I was actually trying to lean back to this point of you talking about, the TV when you were talking about like why didn't they try this sooner if they were going to bring in indie guys? Until the mid 2000s, they weren't bringing in indie guys.
Okay.
And NXT was a big reason why they even started trying to do that more frequently. Like, you would get guys like CM Punk or Daniel Bryan, or there's a few others, but you wouldn't know their names. But they would have bring in indie guys who have some level of reputation on the indies, but that took a lot of work. Like, WWE in the 2000s had a real stigma against signing indie wrestlers. It was a situation where they kind of felt like they're all too small, and we don't want these guys who've just been wrestling in bingo halls, because they really, and what we want to do is sign these like big ex-athletes and train them ourselves. They wanted to be the ground. They didn't really want to like sign guys who had significant experience outside of WWE. They were a lot more wanting to have guys they can start from scratch with.
Okay. That makes sense, especially because of how WWE kind of likes to have everybody who works for them have a vision, an aesthetic, a character that's very singular to them, very owned and moldable by them. But I don't know. I understand. There's just like this small part of me that like is surprised that at least you know, in the it took till like the 2010s. Like, I'm surprised like in the early 2000s no one said like, hey, what if we put training on air? I don't know. Like in just the kind of MO of Vince being like, what would make me the most money, as you do.
Yeah. But you know, regardless of what took them so long, they did end up doing it. And now they've got the machine going. You got NXT as well as the WWE Performance Center that came out in early 2013.
Real quick, I'm assuming by the machine you do not mean Brian Cage.
No, he first of all, he's in AEW. And
wait, didn't he work for WWE for a time?
No, he has never been in WWE.
Never mind.
You know, to sidetrack here, you would think he would, because he has everything they like, except for the fact that you look at him and you see steroid abuser. Well, you're right, and he's been pretty honest about the fact that the reason he's never really been in WWE is because he could never pass a drug test. He's pretty open and honest about that.
Drug tests?
Well, not as extensively. There's not the same. There's not the same extensive wellness policy to that. Yeah, to be fair, WWE didn't really give a shit about the wellness policy either until the Chris Benoit thing.
Oh, I thought they were going to talk about the trial there, but yeah.
No, the drug trial, for a few years they were like, okay, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna cut down on this, and then the heat died down. And they kind of stopped caring. And then the Eddie Guerrero death happened, and then the Chris Benoit thing happened. And suddenly they're like, "Oh, you know what? We are going to have a real drug policy around here."
Oh my god! You know what? Props to Brian Cage for his honesty. Anyway,
back to what we were saying. So that's established what NXT is, and now we're going to talk a little bit about the women's revolution in WWE. So good. because that's the focus of our storyline here. And so we're focusing on the storyline is the focus of the 14-month arc of what I'm calling the 4 horsewomen era of NXT. That would be Charlotte Flair, Sasha Banks, Becky Lynch, and Bayley. They are called the 4 horsewomen because Charlotte Flair, obviously, she is Ric Flair's daughter, and Flair was famously part of the 4 horsemen. And they were just kind of the forefront of the NXT women's division at a time when it was really blowing up in popularity. And from watching them,
well earned among the 4 of them. Holy shit, are they talented?
They are very talented. We'll talk more about what actually happens when I finish setting up our stuff here. So as I said the first time around, it's not a situation of then these 4 women showed up and suddenly for the first time women's wrestling was good. it's not, it's not that simple. It's not, it's a trends-ish situation. And it comes, I think I said it like a wave, but it comes slowly. It comes in parts. And the reason I focus on, I don't think I mentioned it the first time, but the reason I'm focusing on this era is, and why I've had a lot of time to think about why I think this era became the forefront here. And I think it's very much a right place, right time situation, besides their talent, of course. I don't want to take away from that. But if they had this level of talent 10 years ago, you're still stuck, aren't you?
Oh yeah. Oh God, I know.
It's absolutely, it is as much timing and circumstance as anything else. And that timing and circumstance being the restructuring of some of the backstage personnel, such as John Laurinaitis being removed as head of talent relations. He was a big fan of hiring models to train to be wrestlers. It's like hiring women from a catalog has become like the known trait of John Laurinaitis' time as the head of talent relations. And so when he got ousted in 2012,
kind of.
Like once he got ousted from that position, obviously that changes the hiring habits as well as the institution of new trainers as for the performance center, bringing in Sarah Del Rey, Death Ray, Sarah Amato, who was an a women's indie legend of the 2000s, back in the time period when WWE didn't give that much of a shit about women's wrestling. You had Sarah Del Rey absolutely kicking ass on the indies. At this point, Sarah Amato is retired, but she was brought in to be a trainer, and she has had a significant influence on the training that these women would also get during their time in developmental, which allowed them to grow into being better wrestlers.
Yeah, no. I mean, first of all, kudos to them for bringing in, a very competent lady wrestler to train, especially one that, as you pointed out to me when we talked about this last time, was not a WWE person up until that point. Not really a AAA personality. That's one of those things that I'm sure lended to their credibility of being able to actually draw in people who were jaded in like the indies, because they used authentic indie rep for it, which is, yeah, good job, guys. You made a smart business move.
I agree. So they got the new trainer. Plus you have the WWE network factor, because as I kind of threw out there the first time, is that the NXT women's division kind of started out pretty decent, better than what they were doing with the divas on Raw and SmackDown at the time, with people like Paige, Emma, and Summer Rae, and Summer Rae had Charlotte and Sasha in tow by the end too. But when they were the peak of NXT women, it was the Hulu show. It was on Hulu.com. The WWE Network launched in February 2014, and by that point, they're kind of phasing them all out to move on from NXT. So a lot of people missed their peak. So they don't get. So they're definitely kind of forgotten heroes in all this, I would say.
That is, which is unfortunate. But at least we have the power of retrospect.
We do. It's great. And then some of that, and then another. So when the WWE Network launched and NXT kind of became like, besides the pay-per-view thing, but that's only once a month. How do you get people, engaging with your streaming service on a week-to-week basis, as opposed to just showing up once a month and then canceling or whatever, right? How do you hook them week to week? NXT. So, and in the NXT era, it quickly became Charlotte, Sasha, Becky, and Bayley being the ones on top. And they were there when NXT kind of became a larger and larger cult following, to the point where now they can even do NXT shows outside of Full Sail University, because it's so popular that they can draw crowds. I've been to an NXT show that happened in Columbus.
Wait, when?
It would have actually been like fall 2014, winter 2015. I don't have the exact date for you. Oh, you know what? It's not winter. It would have been spring 2015. So in the time frame that we're doing this arc, actually.
So did you get to see any of the Horsewomen?
Yeah, the best match I've ever seen live is Charlotte Flair versus Sasha Banks.
Oh my God.
Just gonna from that show. I'm just gonna go ahead and say that right now. That's my absolute favorite match I've ever seen live.
I can imagine why.
No, it was awesome.
Quick question about Charlotte, because you kind of mentioned how it's almost incidental how the four horsewomen were the ones right to kind of take on this sort of prominence that they did. Charlotte not always gonna be like heir apparent to that in some way or other, because she does have the legacy that she does.
Oh, I'm sure she was, and I didn't mean that like they were never going to be the prominent at some point in time. Just suggesting that like they were prominent at the right time.
Yeah, but like, but well, yeah, no, I know you were saying that, but like, I'm surprised. Like, it's more just like I almost feel like if you have Charlotte Flair up there, you almost have to market her as like one of the pioneers of this in a way. I feel like otherwise, like, you know, it almost feel like, why are you disrespecting Ric Flair's daughter like this?
To be fair, you know what? Now that I think is like she probably would always have she probably always would have been a part of this.
Yeah,
because she is immensely talented, and also you get the whole like Ric Flair's daughter of a legend of a wrestler, you know. Yeah,
immensely popular by default.
Yeah, like that would have always kind of been in some way.
Yeah,
I don't think it's a coincidence that Charlotte was the one chosen to be the first champion here.
No, God, no. And again, not to discredit for a millisecond any of Charlotte Flair's talent, charisma, etc. She has it in spades.
Right. I will also say that in terms of there is some larger implication in terms of like a larger women's revolution, how it kind of went from being like the thing that NXT is good at to being a thing that kind of transitions to Raw and SmackDown. There are some stuff to say with that, but I want to save that for when it's more relevant. Like that kind of has more of in terms of the timeline. That's more like mid 2015. So I want to wait to talk about those factors that influenced WWE to make women's wrestling more prominent on a larger scale than NXT.
Understandable.
Yeah, so that is kind of our setup for where we are with the women's wrestling. And so for these characters, for them specifically, there's not a super large amount of backstory to cover because this is their time. This is their moment of time to shine. They haven't had a whole lot of shine beforehand, so there's not a whole lot of ground to cover. Becky hasn't even debuted until this series of episodes that we cover. But for Bayley, she was introduced as kind of the ultimate fangirl. She grew up watching wrestling. She's very happy and joyous. She loves hugging people, and that made her an instant fan favorite. And frequently, as you saw, heels like to talk down to her as kind of being naive or childish.
What's funny and what's funny to me about Bayley, from what I saw of her, is she almost feels like a much less grating version of the John Cena formula. I don't know exactly why, but she has a lot of that same like kind of unflappable optimism. That Cena carries forward, and that kind of like goody two shoes cutesy attitude. But instead of like Cena, where the act kind of gets old and it seems almost a little overwrought and contrived for him to be like there's a certain smugness to it for him. Something about how Bayley does it feels a lot less like divisive, and I'm not quite sure why.
I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head there a little bit, in that like Cena is, at least as part of it, is you brought up Cena's smugness, and I feel like, and it's this kind of like thing that it's hard to articulate, but I feel like Bayley's comes off more authentic than Cena's does in some instances, like or at least she just feels more likable than John Cena, especially when John Cena is leaning into being an underdog, which is his absolute worst character traits.
But in what we watch, Bayley's leaning into being an underdog.
But I think that's because she actually works in that role.
That's fair.
Compared to Charlotte Flair, like John Cena, when he tries to work underdog, always falls flat because he's like a 10 times over world champion.
That's fair. It feels justified, yeah. Coming from Bayley, I think is the thing, because even in what we watched, there was a little bit of smugness towards Charlotte, like toward the end, but it felt earned because Charlotte. It was in response to Charlotte just being a constant condescending bitch to her.
Yeah, I just think the staleness factor probably also is part of it. For
True.
Like, you know, so John Cena was rocking the same character for a decade. And, you know, that's, oh boy. Bayley has been on NXT TV for a year-ish and has never been at this point in a prominent position. So, you know, it feels fresh and exciting and not like, oh my God.
Yeah, we get it. We get it.
So that Bayley and her relationship to Charlotte at this point has some history to it, in that Bayley and Charlotte were initially friends, and then Charlotte betrayed Bayley to hook up with Sasha and Summer Rae, which leads into Sasha Banks. And that explains Charlotte at this point, really, is being, I guess I'll explain her title ascent. But Sasha Banks has been kind of rolling with Sasha, Charlotte, and Summer, rolling together as the beautiful, fierce females, the BFFs. And so Sasha, Summer Rae gives her a good talking to. I'm pretty sure in front of the mirror. I'm gonna bring up the mirror later in a future episode of this and explain that. And it kind of convinces Sasha to join up with Summer, and then at some point they convince Charlotte to turn on Bayley. And so they're the big heel faction that were primarily enemies of Paige when she was the NXT Women's Champion, which is a good transition to talking about how Charlotte became the champion, because she is the champion. Paige was the champ, the original NXT Women's Champ. She fought on all comers. She was a great champion for 300 days, and then suddenly she was called up to the main roster the night after WrestleMania 30. I'm going to repeat my story of this because it's one of my favorite wrestling anecdotes, personal anecdotes. This happened in my freshman year of college, and at the time I had 3 roommates who did not like wrestling at all, didn't appreciate that I watched it, and so that night was the night of the NCAA basketball championship game. They wanted to watch it. So I was like, I have laundry to do anyway, so I'll watch Raw on a pirated stream down in the basement. Except the dorm building at Ohio State has sucky internet. Fuck you, OSU Wireless. Gotta keep that part in there.
True.
And so the whole night it buffers and it doesn't work and it's trash. But for 10 minutes it works exactly as intended. When AJ Lee, then the WWE Divas champion of well over a year by this point. I forget when exactly she wins the title, but she's beaten everybody is the point. She comes out to congratulate herself for being the unbeatable champion who will never, ever lose. And then Paige Day makes her shocking surprise debut, winds up getting into a WWE Divas Championship match with AJ right then and there. And Paige scores the shock upset win to become the new Divas champion. She's the dual champ, the NXT Women's champ and the WWE Divas champ.
Dude, I don't know what god of internet you appease to get that perfect 10-minute stream.
I know the best moment of the absolute best moment of the show is the one that I managed to get to watch live as it happened.
That's so incredible. Just the stars that aligned for that. Oh God, it's so good.
Oh, I agree. Thank you, internet gods, for allowing me to get to see that happen. But Paige is the dual champion, and this goes on for about a month before JBL, who was the then NXT general manager, was like, listen, being champion of NXT requires you to have fulfill certain obligations and make certain appearances as the NXT Women's Champion, but being the WWE Divas Champion also has certain obligations and appearances you must fulfill, and you can't do both. So I'm stripping you of the NXT Women's title so you can fulfill your duties as the Divas Champion.
Which, boo, but whatever.
Yeah, it is a bit of a lame duck way to end the reign of the first champion who'd been champion for 300 days. But it is what it is at this point. And so they run a tournament to crown a new women's champion that culminates at NXT TakeOver. NXT TakeOvers are the quarterly WWE Network exclusive events, special events for NXT. Basically, they're basically our pay-per-views for the sake of understanding their narrative importance. Yeah. And the first one was called NXT Arrival. The second one was called NXT TakeOver. Then they realized that NXT TakeOver was actually a pretty cool brand name. So all of them going forward are NXT TakeOver. Insert rest of the title here. And so, but at the OG NXT TakeOver, Charlotte beat Natalya Neidhart, daughter of Jim Neidhart. But most importantly, her uncle is Bret Hart. That's the important part that you need to remember, is who her uncle is, not her dad. No one cares. They had a fantastic technical match, and Charlotte became the NXT Women's Champion. And that is where we start this series of episodes, because this is a special arc where we will be covering all of, instead of watching one individual episode and kind of talking about all of it, we are going to be following one storyline across many episodes. Because it is again 14 months between the start of NXT TakeOver and the last NXT TakeOver match we're going to watch. And I wanted to get the full journey as opposed to following it only from NXT TakeOvers.
Yeah, no. And I mean, I really did like the format. As I kind of remarked when we originally did this, it felt really cool to streamline it like this, because it gave this storyline, it made it feel so like it had a really satisfying through line. Putting it all in sequence like this really puts in perspective like how consistent the storytelling was, and how they were able to carry over a lot of nice little beats from episode to episode to really create a full narrative, even though it's like a small portion of each NXT episode.
Yeah. So we covered about a dozen segments across the June 5th, 2014 episode of NXT, all the way to the September 11th, 2014 NXT episode, also known as NXT TakeOver Fatal 4-Way. So if you're watching at home, that's a lot of hours to watch. So if you're going to if you want to watch something that we watched, I would recommend watching NXT TakeOver Fatal 4-Way. There's a nice video package before the match that covers the important stuff of the women's title match that happens on that show.
Yeah, no. I highly recommend finding the timestamps for just the women's, because like I said, if it weren't for like the sheer volume of matches we watched in this, being unrealistic to like cram into like one night to just have the same performance do over and over and over again, it feels like all of these segments put together could just be their own episode. Like that's how streamlined it all feels.
Yeah.
I highly recommend checking out.
Yes, you can watch NXT. All of NXT is now on Peacock, NBC streaming service that now houses all of WWE's content. It is available for the WWE content. You need to be on the $4.99 a month tier to get it with ads, and the $9.99 a month tier to get it with not ads. Sorry, this stuff is hard to find without paying for it.
True.
Such is how this goes. But in it, I'm sure if you at least Google the match, that happens at NXT TakeOver, you can find it.
On YouTube.
Right. But if the full show, it's behind a paywall, as most wrestling content is. So then I think we can go ahead and get started with our back half.
Yeah, I know. Our back half starts right now.
Indeed. So I have deleted already many of my notes from the first time through.
Oh, no.
But I am sure that I will be able to remember what happens.
Yeah, you'll have to guide me through a little bit because I remember like pretty much everything. I'm fuzzy on the sequence in which it all happened.
Yeah, that's fair. So the first thing we get to see is the June 5th episode where we skip the match that happens. Charlotte beats Becky Lynch, I want to say. No, Charlotte beats Bayley.
Yeah, no, it wasn't Becky Lynch. Becky Lynch hadn't showed up yet.
Right. Charlotte beats Bayley, but the important narrative thread is that this was Summer Rae's return to NXT. In the intervening, Summer had been called up especially to work on WWE's Total Divas reality show that airs on the E Network. It's actually very successful. If you're into reality show trash,
God.
I'd recommend checking it out, by the way.
It seems so bad, dude.
It is bad, but in an entertaining way.
If you make me watch it for the show, I will literally murder you. Anyway.
I will not. I don't want to watch it for this show.
Oh, merciful God. Okay.
But if you want bonus content for this channel, please let of me watching
that'll be
Total Divas.
That'll be our next tier on Patreon. Is we get enough people subscribing to like $5 a month or something, and we'll cover fucking Total Divas or whatever.
Yeah. Anyway, so Summer Rae has been gone. And Charlotte and Sasha made up for it they made a little stick figure with a picture of Summer's face on it as the replacement for Summer. But, in the meantime, Charlotte became the NXT Women's Champion. And then Summer came back. And it's just like, hey, guys, you have me back. We're BFFs. It's going to be exactly the same as before.
Yeah, her ego inflated, bigger than a hot air balloon, but,
Yep. So... good times.
And to kind of preface this a little bit, the cool thing about the story as we followed it when we watched was it kind of splits itself very naturally into two acts.
Mm-hmm.
The first act being the story of the downfall of the BFFs, and the second act being the rise of Bayley.
Spoiler warning about where this BFFs thing is going. If you couldn't already tell from the setup where this is going to go. Mm-hmm. So also it featured the return of Emma and Paige to NXT to help Bayley, setting up on the June 12th episode of NXT a 6-woman tag match between Bayley, Emma, and Paige against the BFFs.
Yes.
And it was a really solid match. David, you had pointed out in that first match is that like the BFFs worked really, really well together until their own egos got in the way.
Yeah, and as I pointed out, it's not even, and I think this is pretty directly paraphrasing what I said like the first time we did this, but it's not even like a Hangman and Kenny Omega sort of thing where they're like their personality conflicts make their in-ring work suffer. It really doesn't. They work even if they're like clashing backstage. What's cool narratively about them is that they still like work very, very well as a unit in ring. There's this great moment where they get who was it?
Emma was getting beat up all match.
Yeah. They get Emma in a corner and they just start like triple teaming her. Like one of them will hit Emma and then tag out to the next one who will jump in, hit Emma, and they just cycle through this for a minute or two. And it's just great. It was this really great moment of coordination, a really distinct image that's going to stay in my mind for a while. And they pulled off that really solid coordination, even if backstage, like they're starting to butt heads. The point it becomes a problem is when their egos and personality conflicts get so in the way that they actively start like sabotaging each other from outside of ring. Mm-hmm. That's when it becomes an issue. Is they do something to either implicitly or explicitly screw over their teammates. Yeah, and it
especially becomes a Charlotte and Sasha versus Summer situation. Like
absolutely,
they mess if they are screwing over anybody, they're screwing over Summer. But then Summer like screws over them because at one point she just leaves the match to go take selfies with fans in the front row.
Yep.
And and then when they come over to be like, hey, could you come back to the match? She's kind of offended that they were like, what? They were like mad at her.
Yep. Oh yeah. It's very unfortunate.
Oof. But yeah, Emma spends the entire match getting beat up. She's in there 95% of the time. Mm-hmm. But then Bayley comes in, she gets the tag to Bayley. Bayley coming in like a house of fire, just taking everybody down.
True.
And eventually she is able to get the pin on Charlotte, who is the champion, you might recall.
Yep.
Paige is there.
Paige,
I laughed at this when it happened, but Paige, she is the NXT, she is the Divas champion. She's the clear fan favorite because she was the champion for forever in NXT. Mm-hmm. And then she literally never tags into the match. She hits a couple of moves at when it kind of breaks down to that classic tag formula of everybody running in to get a hit by other people's moves until there's only two people left. She does some stuff with that. But then otherwise, she does nothing the entire match.
Yeah, she slowly peels her shirt off for nothing.
What a farewell.
I know. What a swan. Hey, at least she gets to go be in the big girl leagues now, which is amazing.
Yeah, she'd go to be a pretty solid Divas champion.
True. Long may she reign. Anyway.
Rip her career.
Let's not think about
Yes, Paige is a sad story that I don't want to talk about.
Yeah, let's not I don't want to go there right now.
Anyway, so after the match, they're bickering in the locker. The BFFs are bickering in the locker room. And then suddenly Alexa Bliss comes to just pick up her stuff from her locker, just trying to do her thing. And Sasha gets really offended, as if Alexa has no reason to be in this locker room.
True.
And Alexa's like, whoa, I'm not here for a fight, but how about a match next week? And Sasha's like, all right, you're on.
All right, you're on.
Which leads into the June 19th, 2014 episode with Alexa Bliss versus Sasha Banks. And, I think it was a fun little match. It's not very long, and Alexa is very, very green at this point. So, but she's got some fun athleticism to it. She's in her pixie cheerleader persona, which is always a little bit weird to remember that she had, because she's come a very long way from that.
True.
But, so she does her thing. And then Sasha, but then infighting, Charlotte and Summer start picking fights with each other at ringside for the dumbest reasons, because of course.
Yeah.
Summer's why are you
touching my hair? Yeah.
Yeah, and so they're arguing, distracts Sasha, allowing Alexa Bliss to roll her up for the win.
You hate to see it.
Indeed you do. I'm sure that next week their fortunes will be a lot better.
Totally.
Anyway, next week is June 26th, 2014 episode of NXT. We get Summer Rae in action against Becky Lynch.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And she's dancing.
Becky Lynch as an Irish step dancer.
Yep. She's from Ireland, and I guess that's what her character has to be, David. It was either this, the leprechaun, or a drunk who fights people. You have three options.
But. That's so stupid. That's just like saying every American fighter has to have one of three personalities that are all really derivative of the most stereotypical parts of American culture.
No, David. No, David. American wrestlers are allowed to have any number of personality traits. It's foreign wrestlers that have to be the stereotypes. You gotta know how this goes.
Long live America and the WWE. God damn it. Okay.
Anyway, to the match it's more of the same, more infighting. Well, that's not infighting this time. It's more of Summer keeps getting herself into trouble, and she keeps asking for help. And Charlotte and Sasha are like, no.
Yeah.
I don't think
so. Thought.
And it ends up with Becky getting the dub on Summer Rae. And we
Yeah.
get the great face of Summer, like looking on and like, oh.
Summer is a delightful cartoon character of a human. She's a lot of fun in just that, like, she everything she plays up is very over the top.
Mhm.
Um, but it's entertaining. It somehow it doesn't wear out its welcome because she's very much like this very, like, I'm the center of attention and I'm a movie star, lies, and I'm the best and yada yada yada, and I'm so pretty and whatever. But maybe it's just because I only saw like a blessed little bit of it.
I mean, that is her character, yes.
But she plays it very well, and then extends, to her credit, to her ring work, where she sells very over the top, and at least it feels holistic, you know.
Yeah, it's all very fun to me to see her hamming it up, clowning around here,
Yeah.
and it seems like the split is inevitable. I will say with I think my favorite hammy thing that she did in this entire episode is this series of episodes was, I want to say it was during the six person tag from a couple of the episodes back, when is that while after they lose, they're just constantly arguing with each other on the way out, and after she leaves to go, she still, even while they're still arguing, she still stops at the top of the ramp to do her pose. Even while they're all just yelling at each other. It was the funniest thing.
I do have to give her credit for consistent branding.
You've got to hit the post.
Yeah, I mean, again, as a character, that's a great little detail that I can really appreciate. It's kind of sad that, from what I gather of what you said of her, she kind of just peters out without much fanfare. But
yeah,
but
which is it's a shame.
But kudos to her, like, putting in the work that she did to create this very this very petty sort of heel.
Yep. She's pretty great. Then we get the July 3rd episode of NXT. Yes, we do. I know we're at here. We get the July 3rd episode with the 4 Horsewomen tag team match, where it is Charlotte and Sasha, sans Summer, very conspicuous by her absence here, taking on Bayley and Becky Lynch, as Bayley has said she's got a new best friend. She definitely likes hugs. Yeah. And it's Becky.
It's Becky.
And so they're having their 2-on-2 tag team matches. As I mentioned again, the legend of the 4 Horsewomen, like, as a thing, hadn't really been a thing yet. So this is one of the, like, now it's a big thing, and there's like gravitas to the idea of these 4 women having a tag team match together. But this is before there's that level of, like, oh, this is actually a big deal and really cool. So it's this kind of fun thing to look back on, to see, like, oh, when these kind of interactions happen.
Yeah, no. There is a there's a little bit of a cuteness there of just, like, we have these 2 happy-go-lucky faces. Dear God, I forgot the term for a second. That are just so happy to be here, and it does contrast very well to the very angry heels that are going up against them. It creates it's kind of cool because, like, on one hand, it continues to set up Bayley for what's to come with her and Charlotte, and it gets to showcase, Horsewoman Becky Lynch just starting out, but just from the very simple, I'm sure what was kind of thoughtless, we just put the 2 cute new fresh faces together. It does make for a kind of cool little thing of they're pairing them up against the very top dog, petty, bitchy heels that we're running at this point.
And I will say that, like, bringing out Becky just starting out here is, like, she's still doing the Irish River Dance thing, but at the same time, you can still tell she's very talented. like in the ring during the matches, she's still really good. You know, take out those little goofy bits where she has to start dancing to really get over that this is her thing. But she's really good. She really shows a lot of skill in the ring, and she'll get to show that off way more in the future.
Yeah, not shocked. Again, just the horsewomen, even in this match, even with with Becky being brand spanking new, you see why they're the horsewomen. Their in-ring chemistry together is awesome, and just the work that each of them are capable of putting in, it's very promising.
Yeah, definitely. So the mean heels are mean heels. They get the dub. They beat down both of them. But unfortunately, there was some drama as Sasha took the time after the match to start doing trash talking with Becky. She's all that is I think the important thing to get across about Sasha's character. She's very aggressive, and like I think we called her malicious, which is that works really well. But she's always like in your face, talking shit.
Yeah,
she truly is the boss.
And she knows it. She'll let you know that. But what's great about Sasha is she feels conniving, but not in a tired, contrived way. Like it doesn't feel like this sort of very stereotypical mean girl sort of like she's not feeling like the Regina George trope. And it doesn't feel like your sort of basic heel he I'm so bad sort of thing. She is just very aggressive about everything she wants. And she plays that really well, where she knows she has the power to back up the schemes she pulls to get her way. And so it allows her to be kind of compelling in her flat evilness, which is cool.
But Sasha does the trash talking, but Charlotte walks out. She does not get involved in this. She's like, I'm leaving. I'm out of here. And then later in the night, even in victory, they're in the locker room, and Sasha's like, "What was that? Why did you just leave me out there?" And so it's like, you know what? I kind of don't think I need you anymore. I kind of don't think we should be tag team partners anymore.
Exactly.
And she's like, we can still be friends, the kind that say hello when they're passing in the hallway.
Yeah. Which I almost have to wonder how much of that, because we talked last time about how what's cool about Charlotte's character is this very calculating desire to continue to ascend. Again, probably very much fueled by her status as a legacy and just feeling, like she should be the best. This runs in her veins. They have those very uncomfy, genetically superior quotes from her. Like it's like I'm entitled to it, but I have the ability to back up that entitlement. But I almost wonder, with just now talking or revisiting Sasha's maliciousness, as we like to put it, if part of it too is like they're trying to imply that Charlotte's almost like seeing the writing on the wall with Sasha of like she's gonna become a problem. She was already kind of a problem in the I mean the whole of the BFFs kind of became dysfunctional, mostly catalyzed by Summer. But if that fell apart, could Sasha also go down the drain? Is she going to become a problem? So I wonder if they're playing it too of Charlotte making a tactical move, like cutting off before the Charlotte becomes like a parasite.
That's the way I take it. That's the way I took it. Is this kind of like Summer was the thing that managed to keep them together when they were together, and now that she's so up her own ass that it's affecting them. Now that it's just them, it's not working either.
Yeah, exactly.
Like Summer, when she was the definitive leader in charge, when there was the correct hierarchy, it was all fine. But now Summer left and then came back, and Charlotte became champion. Everything is all mixed up, and it's not working at all.
Absolutely. Which again, is funny because for the most part they still work very well together in ring, and it seemed up to that point like they were getting along.
Right.
But it's
as soon as it stops being about wrestling and it's just their personalities.
Yeah.
Crash.
Yep. Yeah. And again, Charlotte being Charlotte, she has no problem.
She's got no problem dumping friends. She's already dumped two.
Yeah, exactly. She seems like she enjoys, or not even she enjoys. She knows she has to use people to get what she wants, and then when they're no longer of use to her, she can be like, yeah, all right, bye. And it almost seems like she doesn't see much wrong with that.
No, I definitely think she sees absolutely no issue with what she does.
It's such a cool heel character, dude. Like I really, really enjoy how Charlotte is played. Where it's just after the divas being so one-dimensional, seeing female characters, because even in the 90s, and even in the new generation ladies match we watched with Bold Nakano, there wasn't all that much character there to be seen with the lady wrestlers, whereas here we get these characters that are functioning as real people in their own little microcosm story, and it is very effective. And I think just it feels like a lot of effort was put into making these characters work on their own without needing to be under some overarching like it's the girls division divas sort of thing.
Yeah. So then from there we go to the July 10th episode where Summer Rae faces Bayley in a number 1 contenders match. Winner will become the number 1 contender. They will face Charlotte for the NXT Women's title. I gave credit for the next time we do a number 1 contenders match for having this air of like it could make storyline sense if this goes either way. I feel like I should also mention that for this one. I didn't give it credit for that, but Summer Rae seems like the obvious ploy to make, considering the BFFs are imploding on themselves. But then you have Bayley, who has not only beaten Charlotte, but also has this unsettled history with her, because the only reason Charlotte was ever in the BFFs is because she turned on Bayley.
Yep.
So it could have worked either way.
Yeah. It's a fully realized story. It's sad that like I'm so impressed by them clearing that low bar. But I am. They really put thought into the character development and the implications of what happens between these people. It's not like, oh look, we have twins that switch places and we're gonna be goofy about it and it doesn't really matter. It's look at these characters with full lives and full histories, and full personalities bounce off each other. Thank God, finally. I can't wait to no longer be impressed by that very basic accomplishment.
But then Summer beats Bayley in a pretty decent match, and now it's set up like, okay, if there was any hope of the BFFs, which there isn't really, but if there was any chance of reconciliation at all, well, there goes that.
Yep. Bye-bye.
Yeah, Summer and Charlotte are set to collide for the NXT Women's title. Then July 17th episode of Raw, we skipped this one because all it is Sasha Banks beating Alexa Bliss in a rematch. It's kind of a way to be like, establish Sasha as a threat again on her own after taking the loss to Alexa by fluky shenanigans. So this is her way to kind of build her back up, which is important, but for her, but also not important for us to actually watch when we're trying to tell a streamlined kind of story.
Precisely.
Yeah. So then we move on to the July 24th episode of NXT, and we get this conversation in the mirror between Summer Rae and Sasha Banks, where Summer is kind of like is trying to give the "we can still be friends" pitch to Sasha, and Sasha's kind of like calling bullshit on this. She's like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
Summer tries to play off of the fact that like we've both been betrayed by Charlotte. And Sasha's like, calm down there. I don't like you either.
Yeah, hold up.
Yeah, no, I'm good.
Yeah, so Summer's ploy just falls flat on its face, and it's very
Though we do get the great phrase, the summer of summer.
Yeah, I know.
Amazing line.
Yeah.
But after their meaningful conversation in front of the mirror, which as you mentioned the first time was shot very coolly. Very well.
I really appreciate when WWE can get cinematic, when wrestling shows on a whole can get cinematic.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're made to feel right like reality shows, basically. Sports entertainment meets very trashy reality show. So the moments where they're able to kind of rise above that in some way, I'm of two minds on it, because I wish we got a lot more of that, because I love seeing dynamic camera work here. But part of why I love seeing it so much is because it is kind of a breath of fresh air.
Yeah.
In terms of in terms of like what we usually see, and I almost have to wonder if they did more of that, if it wouldn't feel like as cool. So I love when we get I guess I'll cop to this. I wish we got it where more pivotal moments got little flares like that. Because they did have this great shot of we're looking at Summer and Sasha through the mirror.
Yeah.
We're not looking at them head on. It's all their reflection is being recorded. And then when Sasha walks off, we get Summer turning away, and the camera turns, and all of a sudden we see Summer's like actual head, and then the camera turns back, and it's the mirror, and Sasha's gone.
Yeah.
And it is this cool little like just the way that they're framed within the reflection of the mirror. It almost feels like a picture frame of sorts, which is cuts away and cuts back to Sasha to Sasha no longer being there, and it's only Summer. It's almost as if to visually say Sasha is quite literally out of the picture. I don't know. It was just such a cool touch, and like, yay, artistic moment.
Yes, it was a very fun little artistic moment. 100%. We have our match, Charlotte versus Summer Rae for the NXT Women's Championship. I doubt the result was ever really much in doubt, because this is very much Summer's swan song story in NXT. Paige and Emma kind of get this like farewell match situation, because neither of them are really in any really like big thematic ties to deal with before they can just leave. But Summer has the lingering thread of the BFFs. And so they needed to kind of facilitate this breakup so that we can stop having Summer Rae's head on a stick for a while, for the rest of time. So Charlotte and Summer, Charlotte beats Summer to keep the title, and it's actually a pretty solid match. It plays very well to both their strengths.
Yeah, exactly. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's a fun match. I'd probably, as I am going to reiterate this, it's the July 24th, 2014 episode of NXT. It might be worth looking into that, going back and finding if you like the match from TakeOver that I advertised earlier, and you want to watch a little bit more. Charlotte and Summer Rae is not bad.
Yeah, it's Charlotte. I mean, Charlotte. Any match with Charlotte is great, and up against the very cartoony Summer, with the stakes thrown in, it does feel it's a very solid match overall.
Yeah. Then we go to the July 31st episode of NXT. Charlotte beats Becky Lynch. We didn't watch it because it's not important, but I believe this is actually Becky's last match in the Irish dancing shtick.
Yeah,
I will confirm that later. I'll try to confirm that, but I'm pretty sure that's her last match with that gimmick. So, but Charlotte gets the dub And then we get the backstage interview where Bayley is being interviewed, and she's asked about how she feels about the BFFs breaking up. And she's kind of like, well, they were kind of mean to me, so, not unhappy about
I
it.
ain't complaining.
No, pretty good. And she starts stating her case that, like, hey, I beat Charlotte, so I should get my shot at the NXT title. And Charlotte just pops into frame to interrupt, to be like, hey, keep your name out of my mouth.
Yep. Or keep my name out of your mouth.
Yes.
Yeah. As I pointed out last time, Charlotte, as part of her very great character, does this really interesting thing where she's not playing it as like she's trying to do direct animosity with Bayley. She plays it as like almost like concern trolling for Bayley, like hey, you're going down a road that you don't want to go down. If you do this, I am going to have to kick your ass. I'm going to have to embarrass you on live TV.
And I don't want to do that.
Yeah, I don't wanna. So it keeps her from being, very like it keeps her from being a generic threat. Like obviously, of course, part of her is implicitly never going to be generic because again, Charlotte Flair, and she does have the personal stakes with Bayley of like, top 10 anime betrayals. But playing it from an angle of like the dutiful heel, the I have to do this, insincere as it may have been coming from her, that's not a beat we get to see played out a whole lot. So it's a kind of unique storytelling thing they do. But the cool thing about it is, or the compelling thing about it is, I should say that it is that she isn't, being fully sincere about that. There is a part of her that's like reveling in it, and it's almost her trying to like psychologically manipulate Bayley away from giving her a run for money. And I almost have to wonder if it's like she's scared of Bayley's prospects.
I mean, I think Bayley, the character, takes it that way. Like she, we'll talk more about it with her next bit, but she very much sees it as Charlotte's not taking her seriously and trying to mess with her because she knows that Bayley can beat her.
Yep.
But moving on, the August 7th episode of NXT has Bayley beating Eva Marie. I've used this description for David a lot, but it still works, and this is my first time saying it on camera. Eva Marie is Summer Rae if Summer Rae was very bad.
Yeah.
And Bayley gets that win to kind of just make her look, get a win to build her up for the next thing, which is the August 14th episode of NXT, where we will get Bayley and Sasha in a number one contenders match. And they have the interaction backstage where Bayley is just doing her thing, getting ready. And then Sasha decides to burst in and be like, who do you think you are?
Yep.
To which she, of course, answers, I'm Bayley.
Which is so cute.
Yeah. So, but then Sasha just keeps running down Bayley, is like, you will never be NXT Women's Champion before me. And Bayley kind of takes it all in stride. She's like, I'm gonna win tonight. You're clearly you're still kind of bent out of shape about the BFFs. And I think she has the line of you need you want a hug, Sasha, and it's not coming from me.
Oh. Well, again, we were talking earlier about Bayley's sort of the greater level of sincerity to her shtick. And again, what's interesting is that she still does have that smugness and that kind of like almost it's not holier than thou, but that kind of like, I know I'm gonna play the game along with you, and I'm gonna be proud of myself for doing it. But it doesn't feel like it comes from a place of like conceitedness somehow. It comes from like, her both IRL and then, translated over to kayfabe status of being like a lifelong fan. And it comes across a lot more of her like knowing how the game is played and like almost studying the blade when it comes to like learning how to play ball with the jaded dickish industry members.
While you were becoming the boss.
Yeah, exactly.
The wrestling blade.
I was studying the hug.
Hey.
Yeah. Because like she seems to be like really enjoying that she gets to throw these zingers around. Like it's
Mhm.
smug and it's definitely like it's definitely pointed and meant to sting a little. But she does it with a smile on her face that almost seems to say like internally like "Hey, that was a good one. Good job, Bayley. Thank you,
Yeah,
Bayley."
go me.
Yeah,
Go me.
go me.
Go me. Really
It's
got him on that
I
one.
can't fully articulate why that doesn't bother me and why that doesn't annoy me as a character where if like Cena did something like that, it would get under my skin. But it just doesn't somehow,
Mhm.
and I can't explain it, but I just love these little moments. Again, I'm Bayley.
I can't explain either. So Bayley and Sasha, I mentioned this with the Summer and Bayley match, but obviously they do a really good job of setting up this match to where either woman could win. It feels like it would make sense. So you
Ooh.
don't really know what they're gonna do. So you don't necessarily know, or you're not 100% sure where this is gonna go.
Yeah.
And so Bayley gets the win in a great match. Bayley and Sasha have always had fantastic chemistry with each other. And we'll get to
Hmm.
see that plenty of times going forward.
Oh yeah.
But Bayley gets the dub. She's the new number one contender, and it's set for NXT Takeover Fatal Four Way. I've been carefully avoiding mentioning where this goes to keep the story going. It is Bayley versus Charlotte.
Mm.
So moving on to the August 21st episode of Raw, NXT, excuse me. Yes, this is Charlotte beats Becky again, which we skipped this match. This is Becky's first match under her new character. That I'm
Yeah.
keeping that tight-lipped until we see it for the first time on our next time we do this episode, this era. But this is when her character change happened. She only wrestled as the Irish dancer like 3 times,
Yeah.
probably for the best.
Yeah, it was funny to see as like a time capsule thing, but Jesus Christ, if that became her entire NXT shtick, I'd
Yeah,
gotten
no.
old real quick.
Like it is funny as a novelty, especially knowing that she'll have much more success later.
True.
But it is extremely one note character that can't really go anywhere
Exactly.
because even if you try to give her emotional depth, you're still stuck with her Irish river dancing all the time.
God, I know.
So moving on, August 28th, 2014 episode. Bayley and Sasha have a rematch that we don't watch. Sasha was basically like double or nothing
Yeah.
on the number one contendership thing, and she just loses again.
Yeah.
Uh,
Sasha.
oof. Your time will come, Sasha, but this wasn't it.
Yeah, you can't like again, it ultimately makes sense. Like if you're putting it against Bayley for the double or nothing, yeah, no, this is not gonna turn out well for you. Sorry, fam.
Oof. But we didn't watch that match because I felt it was redundant. But we do watch the stuff that came afterwards, where Bayley is being interviewed in the ring. She's talking about how excited she is and how hard she's been working. She explicitly uses the metaphor of like referencing like a motivational poster of a cat hanging from a tree that says "Hang in there," and she's ready to go. And then here comes Charlotte to interrupt, and immediately she shits all over the cat metaphor, where she suggests that if she saw a cat hanging from a tree, she would merely kick it out of the tree because you know what, life's tough.
Oh my god.
And it's following a lot of the same beats we already mentioned during the first interaction between Charlotte and Bayley, of her kind of being like, this is tough, and if you fight me, I'm just gonna have to kick your ass, and I don't want to do that. So just give up, Bayley. Grow up and don't try to fight me. And
But yeah, but
involving
Bayley bites back,
she
which
does.
is great. And again, it's very much I know how this game is played. You think you can get one over on me because I'm new and I'm bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, but you forget that I've been prepping for this for as long as I've, been able to watch TV.
Mm-hmm.
Um, um, she revels in her ability to keep pace with keep pace with Charlotte and the rest of them, so to speak.
Yeah. And we get a lot of fun interactions with the crowd on this one because the crowd is not having any of Charlotte at all.
Oh, I know.
They boo her constantly. Leads to her constantly being like, "Hey, stop talking! I'm trying to talk."
I know. She even then tries to like play it off later when Bayley's talking like hey, Bayley's trying to talk here, like again feigning the care about her opponent sort of thing to kind of throw her off.
Yeah, which also had one of my favorite, I thought Bayley did a hell of a job with this. I don't know how scripted this moment would have been because, it's a live crowd acting like that. You can't really prepare for that kind of thing. But scripted or not, or improv, it still came off really well of like Bayley's first line is while Charlotte is jaw jacking with the crowd. She's like, hey, I'm right here. Look at me. I'm a threat to you. I think that was a great moment for Bayley.
It makes for a really effective moment where she asserts her power, and we come to understand, yes, Bayley can absolutely hold her own against Charlotte Flair.
Yeah. Then I forgot to mention that we have the handshake motif throughout this whole story.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Yes, after Bayley wins the #1 contendership match, Charlotte comes out to ostensibly congratulate her. Bayley is suspicious, and so she initially kind of rejects her offer of a handshake. And it's not until Charlotte raises her hand in victory that Bayley's willing to shake her hand. Yep. And so this time, fast forward to now, Bayley offers in good faith to shake hands, almost as a make good for what happened the first time. You could argue. And Charlotte's just like, nah, fuck that. As I took it as like, I, as the champion, can offer you a handshake because I'm a champion. You can't offer me one.
Yeah.
That's the way I read that. And she just kind of walks off and is like, I warned you about this.
Yes.
And so that's that. And then the September 4th, 2014 episode, the last episode before TakeOver, Charlotte beats Alexa Bliss in a quick match to kind of just give her a W before the TakeOver. And out comes Bayley to talk to Charlotte again. And Bayley offers the handshake one more time. No, it goes the other way, doesn't it? I forget which way this goes.
Oh, God. I think... Oh, no. Because one of the times Charlotte offers it and Bayley rejects.
Yeah, and then... But Bayley offers and Charlotte... I remember how this ends. I don't remember who offered on this one.
I think it was... No, okay, so it was Bayley gets the dub against Sasha. Charlotte shakes her hand.
Mm-hmm.
And then Bayley tries to go for a handshake with Sasha, or tries to go for a handshake with Charlotte, and then Charlotte rejects. And then Charlotte offers the handshake and is like, "This is what you wanted."
Oh yeah, you're right. Is this what you wanted, right? And of course the crowd is like, "Don't do it. This is so a trap."
It's a trap.
It was a trap. But thankfully Bayley also isn't dumb and kind of sees this for what Charlotte's trying. And so whatever Charlotte tries to do doesn't work. And Bayley is able to hit her with the Bayley to belly and then grabs her title belt and is like, yeah, I'm going to win this. And Charlotte is just fuming about it the whole time.
Yeah, I know. Which I mentioned, another fun layer to Charlotte's character here is she doesn't, almost surprisingly, she doesn't really like go and attack Bayley for doing that. Almost she's trying to uphold this sense of decorum, like I'm the legacy and I respect the rule in some way or other.
I'm above such petty nonsense, which could arguably be another part of how her and Sasha fell apart. Because Sasha clearly doesn't have that attitude about it.
She I mean, again, Charlotte wants to do things her way, and anybody who's any remote opposition to that or any remote obstacle to that, bye-bye.
Don't need them.
Yeah, don't need them. And again, there's this sense of arrogance about it too. Charlotte's like, all right, well, you'll pay for this in ring.
Yep. And then we cut to, we go to NXT TakeOver Fatal 4-Way. We get a video package that sums up pretty much all of this. Their interviews are pretty standard fare, nothing worth really mentioning. But we get to the match, and it starts at Bayley, as I haven't really mentioned it on this part yet, but it is fascinating that the evolution of the entrance music for Bayley, Sasha, and Becky, who not Charlotte, because Charlotte starts with the same music she still has now, technically, which is a remix of this 2001: A Space Odyssey, which was Ric Flair's music. So, but Bayley, Sasha, and Becky all have these kind of like generic songs before they get their kind of big license their big license CFO themes that they become more known for. And it's kind of fascinating to see the evolution of their presentation in that way. And on this show is when Bayley debuts that song, her song.
Yeah. It's fun to see things for me. It's fun to see you react to some of this stuff as like you have direct experience with these characters from like this being the impetus of your fandom. So it's really cool to see like you giving these little historical tidbits that of just like you remarking, that music is different. Oh, now it's what I'm used to. So it's kind of cool to see from your perspective, like when things come into the mainstream, broadly accepted, this is what defines this character.
Yeah, she comes out in the Randy Savage-esque tassels that I did not remember that she did this early. Bayley looking great, and then out comes Charlotte as the champ, and we have a match. And again, the match I think was pretty darn good.
Yeah, it was really, really darn good.
Mm-hmm. It is a match that shows the technical competencies of Bayley, which I think you'd mentioned we had kind of thrown out there. It's almost like there's like this expectation you'd expect Charlotte would be technically skilled, daughter.
She is, and she is,
yeah. But Bayley is able to kind of keep up with her relatively easily. And that's kind of a thing that you wouldn't necessarily expect from Bayley, who comes with a more straightforward background.
The comparison I just thought of, the little blessings, for as annoying as it is that we had to re-record this, the little blessings of getting a little more time to like ruminate on this. You know what this almost feels like to me is Bret Hart versus 1-2-3 Kid. In that
I can see the comparisons there.
You have the experienced veteran versus the bright-eyed, bushy-tailed newbie, and it has a lot of parallels. Bret finds himself, or Bret and Charlotte both find themselves, showing off their usual level of tactical skill, and at times overwhelmed by the fact that their opponent is keeping pace with them almost the entire time. The 1-2-3 Kid / Bayley, find themselves in tough spots because they are going up against like a really, really well established opponent. And there's clearly a certain level of intimidation there, and they definitely fall prey to some follies of inexperience. But from their kind of respective aptitudes, they're able to find like little ways to snake in and out of that, to kind of overcome and rework and re-strategize on the spot, and it creates this great little like tactical game between the two, and it ultimately ends where the less experienced gets a little too cocky, lets their guard down a little too much, and the veteran gets the dub simply because they were able to kind of get in just enough of an edge from their experience, from not falling into little tricks and traps of sophomoric noobishness that their opponents did.
Yeah, and in a story, and I think both of them also end up being stories about respect, in that, Bret has respects 1-2-3 Kid going in. In the meantime, this match narratively is about Bayley gaining Charlotte's respect. and you can see it in kind of the ending bit here of Charlotte goes for a moonsault off the top rope. Bayley's able to avoid that, and Bayley almost gets her, but Charlotte is able to kind of maneuver herself in a position that she can throw Bayley off, and not just throw Bayley off, also rock her, like throw her down head first into one of the turnbuckles. Looked nasty. Sure, it was fine. But by that point, it's basically over, and Charlotte treats it that way. She goes for the moonsault again. She hits it. This time, Bayley kicks out, and Charlotte is kind of like mad / stunned about it. And Bayley is fighting hard, but you can also see in her face she's done. Like,
absolutely,
she don't got anything left, But she's still fighting. But she's running on empty, and so that's why all it takes is Charlotte to hit the bow down to the queen / the natural selection for the win. And that's how the match ends. But Bayley, having fought so hard and having come so close, gets Charlotte's respect.
Yeah. And what's really interesting about that is there's still this Charlotte has to play it where she's above it all. But there's something about how she responds to Bayley where you can kind of tell there's a little bit of, okay, fine, you're all right. You didn't embarrass yourself. You lost, but you didn't embarrass yourself. And then Sasha shows up.
And then comes Sasha, who I guess figured that this is the perfect time to settle that grudge with Bayley over that 2 losses thing.
Yeah, which at first you think she's just coming in to gloat, maybe try to reclaim her friend, like, hey, bestie, retained. Remember how we're besties, bestie?
We're great.
But instead what she does is she hops into the ring and starts wailing on Bayley.
Oh yeah, it's bad.
And it creates this great moment. There again, what was so fun about watching this, aside from the streamlined nature of the story, and aside from the fact that, oh my god, actually good women's wrestling, was just there were so many moments. So many little hell yes moments that excited the ever living goodness out of me to watch. And this one was kind of the final one where, Charlotte turns her back on Charlotte, and Charlotte turns her back on Sasha as Sasha kind of like hops into the ring, and as Sasha like kind of approaches Bayley and starts wailing on her, Charlotte's looking up at the monitor and she sees this. And she turns around, and this is where that respect for Bayley kind of comes a bit to fruition, because she goes right the hell up to Sasha and pulls her off and is like, "No, you're not doing this."
No. And that makes Sasha back off.
Yeah.
Like, okay, I'm not fighting a capable opponent today. I'm out of here.
Yeah, I know, which is a great highlight of like what a coward Sasha is in her character ultimately, where she's like she's malicious and maniacal, but she's also she's also like focused on self-preservationism in a way where she's not going to like risk it for the biscuit against Charlotte, because she knows she could never fully stand up at this point to Charlotte.
It'll be bad. It'll be a bad one.
Yeah. So there's a little bit of like bark worse than bite here.
Yeah. So that kind of ends our spot for the time being of Charlotte victorious as the champion, but also setting up where we're going next. Is Sasha is that threat of Sasha is still lurking around.
It was just this was just a fun time overall. There were what was cool for me is like there were little hokey things here and there that I riffed on, made fun of, and was like, of course, rolls eyes, WWE gonna WWE. But overall, the sum of its parts makes such a fantastic whole that like little eye roll moments didn't really ruin anything for me. The entire time I was bought in. Partially again just because of the meme of yes, good women's wrestling. We know why we're here and it's great to see.
Yeah.
But just the more and more I think about it, the more little moments I realize fully the level of thought that went into this, and the level of dedication and care for these women wrestlers, the respect for them.
Mhm.
And it shines through absolutely really well, and they're all super duper talented. Pretty much everyone we saw tonight went on to have a very fruitful, or tonight, quote unquote, went on to have a
Right.
pretty friggin' fruitful career within the company. And yeah, I can't wait to see this continue, this momentum continue, and feel as though the story that's being told is one that the people working on it really care about and really
Mhm.
want to see told to the fullest extent. And it's
Yeah.
awesome. It's so cool.
No. I enjoyed this greatly. It's even though for me this was my third time one through this, even in this time period, because a little behind the scenes work of what I did here
Mhm.
is like having to time out everything means I kind of already had to see everything to
Yeah.
kind of know like this is important. Also, for a while there, this wasn't on Peacock. So my job
Oh
was to kind
god.
of try to piece together a recording of sorts of the of like a 2 hour supercut, which means also required me having to watch it again. Thankfully, I mean, I hate that I had to spend that much time on it, but also it's high. I think that it was better for us as a viewing in terms of like higher quality kind of viewing that Peacock just had the episodes up.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so for me, even beyond thinking of like I watched all this happen 7 years ago, I also was like I've watched it twice in the last month.
Yeah.
But even on that through, I had a heck of a time watching it and actually getting to kind of really dissect and follow along with the storyline. And like as I've said, this is only about 3 months at a time. We got 4 episodes of the podcast and about 11 months left of story to go.
Yeah. Yeah, there's still a whole lot out there, which is exciting
Mhm.
because for this streamlined story, it did feel like a lot happened. So the fact that we're gonna get a really thorough narrative to this is another exciting aspect to it too, as well as just a lot of good matches, because that's
Yep.
the draw of NXT too, is it's uh the the baggage is simpler, and
Mhm.
the fighting is a mite more plentiful.
Yep. Absolutely.
Wrestling on my wrestling show couldn't be.
What? What? No, that's dumb.
No. Yeah,
Uh,
do it the wrestlicious way. No wrestling whatsoever to be found on this wrestling show.
now that I think we've seen both sides of the proverbial coin,
Uh
uh, for next time, let's go back to we finally closing out an arc that I think neither of us have had any fun in.
I've
It's
had
time,
tiny bits of fun. I've had a little
tiny.
bit of fun just getting to be like, oh, so this is the disaster that was the new generation.
Yep, it is
and
as
a, and a
bad as
few a few
advertised.
a few good matches. I mean, again, I pulled a parallel to what we saw here from the
Hmm.
new generation, Hart versus 1, 2, 3. So it's had its moments, but the main story we were here to see is just stupid. For as much as I
What
was
a
talking tonight about thorough story crafting, about care and respect being put into all facets of production, this is very much the opposite.
let's go the opposite of that. It's SummerSlam 1994. It's The Undertaker versus The
Versus
Undertaker.
fucking Undertaker.
But that is for next week. For now, David, hit the plugs.
Absolutely. My friends, my wonderful friends, thank you for joining us for this slightly untraditional episode of the Noobs and Knockouts podcast. We hope you had a
Yeah,
great time. We know we did.
we did.
Second verse, second time through, just as sweet. The hashtag the lost episode. No, but if you are a returning listener, welcome back. We would like to thank you for once again allowing us into your earlobes for another week. We hope you continue to keep coming back for more. If you're brand new to us, welcome. We are delighted to have you join us here at the Noobs and Knockouts podcast. We welcome, shockingly, both noobs and knockouts alike. So whatever walk of wrestling fandom or lack thereof you come from, you are more than welcome in this space, and we are delighted to have you. If you would like to continue to keep joining us in this space and you're not entirely sure how to do so, I will tell you right now. First, you can find us on YouTube, the Noobs and Knockouts Podcast. Hit subscribe, ring that bell, leave those comments, add us to your playlist. Check out our playlist. Austin, being the phenomenal show manager that he is, has organized all of our arcs into very easy to find, nice little organized playlists. So if you want to follow,
I'm very sad that it doesn't work like that on Spotify. Or I would
I
would love to do that on the podcast stuff too, but unfortunately, that's not how that works organizationally.
Yeah, but if you do want to follow a specific storyline, whether it be NXT here or what the hell we're talking about with constantly bitching about the divas or anything like that, you can find that all organized there. It's awesome. You can also find us on, speaking of the podcast places, 3 of the best places to find podcasts, which are Spotify, Apple, and Google. Give us a rating, give us a follow, give us the old download arena. Just whatever you, if you enjoy us, just, that sweet interaction, that little engagement boost is so much to kind of help us within the algorithm. And plus, if you're having a good time, I feel you just want to do those things anyway. Keep up to date with us. Make sure you can listen to us offline. Let us know in those ratings how you think we're doing on this show, all that good stuff. You can also find us on our social media. First on Twitter, we are at Noobs. What?
I'm just pointing at. I have it down.
Yeah. We have a Twitter. We've switched streaming collab softwares recently after our little fiasco.
We can have the Twitter handle down here.
Yes, so you can find us on Twitter at Noobs and Knox Pod. That's Noobs, the letter N, Knox Pod. We tweet out a whole bunch of different stuff, memes, interaction with the wrestling fandom at large. We will post whenever our new episodes drop, all that sort of good stuff.
Normally Sundays at 1. I feel like I have to throw that out there, considering this one is coming out at a
little late. Yeah. And also Austin it takes the very delightfully monumental task of live tweeting the wrestling that he watches. My friend, what is coming up on the schedule this week?
All right. So let's first and foremost, normally every week I live tweet AEW Dynamite live on TNT at 8 p.m. on Wednesday. Thank God they're back. No more basketball.
Yay.
And why I live tweet that one specifically, because it is the one thing that I regularly watch live wrestling every week. Though I also, of course, follow Impact and WWE. I won't be live tweeting. I don't know when we're going to drop this episode, but I will not be live tweeting on June 30th because we are recording a podcast episode that day. It happens. But very excited because in the month of July, AEW is going back on the road. So all of July, we're getting special episodes of Dynamite, Road Rager, Fighter Fest nights 1 and 2, and Fight for the Fallen. It's going to be a good time. But not only do we live tweet AEW Dynamite, we also live tweet pay-per-views, WWE, Impact, and AEW. And wouldn't you know it, in July, WWE has a pay-per-view. Weird. It's almost like they do it every month. On July 18th, live on the Peacock app. Please refer to my previous explanation of Peacock and its pricing, and you will get to watch Money in the Bank 2021. We've had fun experiences on this show with Money in the Bank, haven't we?
Oh,
the real ups and downs.
Ups and downs, my friend. It's rough out there.
Yes. So we have the Money in the Bank men's ladder match for a shot at the world championship. It will be Ricochet, John Morrison, the former Johnny Mundo, for people who have watched this show regularly.
Yes,
well, I'm going to throw this out there too. Ricochet is also the former Prince Puma. So we got Lucha Underground all over the place around here.
Mm-hmm.
We also have Matt Riddle, who's like a stoner, but also good at kicking your ass. Big E, who is just a really funny guy who's also a power lifter, so he can kick your ass. Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn, as well as 3 more people. Then we have the women's Money in the Bank ladder match. In the last few years, they have added a women's Money in the Bank. And so far, we have the Empress of Tomorrow, Asuka, Naomi, Alexa Bliss, hopefully Sans creepy doll that allows her to possess people. Nikki Cross, who is a superhero now, neat,
Sure.
and Carmella. We'll remember that name for later in this series of episodes, as well as 3 more people for the women's Money in the Bank match. But we also have some regular matches too. We have the WWE Championship match. Bobby Lashley, the Almighty. He's a big mean son of a bitch, but he's taking on Kofi Kingston.
Kofi!
Yes, I would so love it if Kofi won the WWE title on Money in the Bank. I kind of want it.
Hard.
For the Raw Women's Championship, we have Rhea Ripley, the medalist of metalheads, against Charlotte Flair. You know her. She's still Charlotte. And then for the Universal Championship, we have the Roman Reigns, the tribal chief, the head of the table. Acknowledge him.
Acknowledge him.
Against the rated R superstar, Edge, for the Universal title. That is our card so far, but again, we are still a couple weeks away. They haven't even filled out but they haven't even included all the entrants in the Money in the Bank matches yet. Who knows what could get added? It is WWE's first show back with fans on the regular until they will be back on the road as well. So July is going to be a very exciting time.
Yes. Huge stuff. So be sure to check all of that out. Austin does a great job with his live tweeting. It's always very insightful, very funny, some great reactions. It's just good shit overall. So check that out. It's awesome. You can also email us. We have a Gmail account. We are noobs and knockouts pod at gmail.com. That's noobs, the word, and this time knockouts pod at gmail.com. If you'd like to reach out to our show a bit more directly, say hi, tell us what you think of the show, give us suggestions, things you want to see on future episodes, what you like about the show, what you don't. Just tell us how beautiful and wonderful and sexy you think our voices are, and how we should do some ASMR content, because we just have that lovely lilting bass going on, all that good stuff. We just love hearing from people. If you want to say hi, please do, and we'll definitely be sure to say hi back. And finally, you can find us on Patreon. The Noobs and Knockouts podcast is on Patreon. Subscribe to us for $1 a month to get early access to episodes and a shout out at the end of each episode.
Yep. Until next time, see you guys later.
Hasta luego.